As a pregnant woman, I went to the checkup with my husband, but I was the only one led to the neighboring room. There, the doctor showed me something that made me want to scream. The doctor whispered urgently,
"Stay quiet. Don't let him notice you."
It revealed my husband's chilling true form. Desperate to avoid his gaze, I sprinted outside. But midway, sharp pain gripped my belly, and I collapsed. What do I do? I wondered. Suddenly, a car appeared before me, and I was dragged into it. I am Olivia, 32 years old. As an office worker, I was caught up in work every day, leading a life where I only slept at home. 2 years ago, on my way home from work, I encountered my husband, Michael, who was selling flowers from a mobile cart. His lonely eyes left an impression on me, and occasionally, I would visit to buy the small bouquets he created.
Thank you for being a regular customer. Do you like our flowers?
Yes, I love them. But in truth, I had developed feelings for Michael. Gradually, we started talking more, and I learned that Michael had no family. He had lost his parents in an accident during his college days. I, too, had lost my parents early in life, and our shared experiences drew us together quickly. Michael had moved away from this place filled with painful memories and lived in a remote area for a while. However, the convenience of familiar surroundings eventually led him to move to my area just 6 months ago. Before long, we both realized that we were essential to each other and got married. I left the apartment I had been renting and moved into my husband Michael's apartment. Our life together, sharing household chores, was filled with happiness. However, there was one thing that bothered me. Michael wouldn't let me enter his room. His room had a separate balcony with running water, but access to it was strictly prohibited. Why won't you let me inside? Let me at least clean it.
I'm nurturing a precious new plant species there. If it's exposed to even a slight temperature change, it could be disastrous.
I reluctantly accepted his explanation, although it didn't quite sit right with me. From that day on, Michael always locked his room whenever he left. Perhaps he doesn't trust me. It's a bit sad, I thought, my heart heavy with unease. One day, when I returned home early from work, I found a key lying in front of Michael's room. Without thinking, I picked it up. Suddenly, a voice behind me shouted,
Return that key immediately.
Startled by the shouting voice from behind, I watched as my husband snatched the key from my hand, his expression more terrifying than anything I had ever seen before.
I've warned you not to enter my room.
I only picked up the key that was lying here. I haven't opened any doors.
So you haven't been inside?
No. My husband's anger surprised me, and I found myself on the verge of tears.
I'm sorry for raising my voice,
Michael said, his demeanor softening. There's no need to get so upset.
It's just that I've been worried about the seedlings I'm nurturing.
Michael's usual kindness returned as he gently wiped away my tears. Being diligent at work is a good thing, but ever since then, an awkward tension has hung between us. From that point on, I found myself constantly on edge, wondering when Michael would explode in anger. It was around this time that I began sensing a rift between my husband and me. During that time, the smell of food made me feel nauseous, so I visited the obstetrician. There, I discovered I was pregnant. We're going to have a child, I told my husband. His response was hesitant.
Oh. I see.
I pressed him. What's with that reaction? Aren't you happy? He replied.
It caught me off guard because it was sudden. Becoming a father. It's quite profound.
Although he smiled and gently touched my belly, I sensed his lack of enthusiasm. Honestly, I wasn't fully prepared for parenthood either. Perhaps that's why I could empathize with his feelings to some extent. From the next day onward, my husband took the initiative not only with grocery shopping but also cooking meals and brewing tea. Michael seems pleased, I thought. While my morning sickness wasn't severe, I was at a critical point in my work, so I decided to leave household chores to my husband. I felt genuine gratitude for his consideration, especially since my job was becoming increasingly challenging. At work, I managed to keep up with my usual tasks, but when I returned home, I was drained.
You need to nourish the baby.
Yes, I understand. He then prepared pumpkin soup, my favorite, with care. In his apron, he thoughtfully crafted a smooth soup, considering both our unborn child and me. The following day and every day after, he continued to cook nutritious meals and serve beneficial teas. However, despite his concern, my morning sickness worsened day by day, and I began to feel pain in my abdomen. Just as the scheduled checkup approached, my husband insisted on driving me to the obstetrician. Soon, we sat in the examination room, waiting for the doctor.
Let's conduct a more detailed examination.
Unexpectedly, the doctor suggested and led me alone to an adjacent room. There, a shocking revelation awaited me. The doctor's stern expression intensified as he whispered.
You must escape immediately.
Confused, I asked, "What did you just say?" The doctor hushed me and showed me a photo on his phone, an astonishing image. "I can't believe this!" I stammered.
Stay inconspicuous near the staff entrance. I'll explain everything later.
The doctor instructed. My mind spun in turmoil as I followed his advice and stood before the door, my emotions in turmoil. Suspicion toward my husband grew as I stared at the photo the doctor had revealed. But I couldn't fully process it. Furthermore, I couldn't fathom why the doctor had summoned me to this place. Can I trust what the doctor said? What should I believe? And before I knew it, I was running as fast as I could. I don't have a specific destination, but if I don't hide, the baby might be in danger, I thought. Straining every muscle, I pushed myself to move away from the hospital, gasping for breath. It hurts. Suddenly, the pain in my abdomen intensified, and I collapsed on the spot. What should I do? If I'm discovered, it'll be a disaster. Despite my attempts to stand, my knees trembled uncontrollably from fear. In that critical moment, a car pulled up in front of me. A stranger emerged from the vehicle and forcibly dragged me inside. Wait, let me go, someone help! The pain in my belly and the overwhelming fear left my mind hazy. Unable to get out on my own, I remained in the car, uncertain of where it was taking me. After about 30 minutes, they finally pulled me out of the car, cradling me as they led me into a room. As I entered the room, there stood the doctor who had urgently told me to flee earlier.
I'm relieved you're safe. When you didn't appear at the staff entrance, we searched for you.
But the person who put me in the car earlier was a stranger.
That was one of our nurses. You've likely seen her when entering the examination room.
The doctor explained. Now that I thought about it, I vaguely remembered encountering the nurse when she had gestured for me to enter the examination room. Despite the nurse's repeated assurances during the car ride, "You'll be fine, don't worry," my confusion had rendered her words unheard. As it turned out, the nurse had driven me around for 30 minutes, waiting for my husband to leave the hospital. The doctor apologized, explaining that the sudden shock from the photo had left me unsettled.
I'm truly sorry. We've informed your husband that you need urgent surgery and asked him to wait at home.
The doctor's unwavering commitment to a mere patient intrigued me. When I inquired about the reasons behind his actions, the doctor revealed a profound purpose. The doctor, who is the director of this hospital, explained to me the reason for saving the photo he showed me. That left me astonished. Gradually, my thoughts began to align, making sense of the bewildering situation. After a while, I noticed my throat was parched. I reached for my water bottle, intending to take a sip of tea, but the doctor intervened.
Hold on.
He said, leaning in to sniff the liquid.
How long have you been drinking this?
About a month. My husband has been making it for me. The doctor's response was unexpected.
This is a type of tea that pregnant women should avoid.
Reflecting on it, I realized that since my husband started brewing the tea, my nausea and abdominal pain had intensified. Could this be the cause of my discomfort? I asked. The doctor nodded solemnly, and suddenly, my situation became clear. What kind of person is he? I wondered aloud. And why didn't you immediately report this to the police? The doctor explained that he wanted personal retribution. After hearing his reasoning, I was rushed to the director's hospital for treatment. Unfortunately, I miscarried. Following the procedure, as I lay on the bed, tears streaming down my face, the doctor and nurse comforted me. It's a difficult time, they said, gently patting my back.
You were in the early stages of pregnancy, so once the anesthesia wears off, you can go home. But stay here for now, considering your husband's situation.
The doctor had prepared a nearby room at the nurse's station, just in case. Alone in the room, grief over losing the baby overwhelmed me. Gradually, that grief transformed into anger. I'll never forgive Michael. I'll investigate thoroughly and make him pay. Determined, I first called my husband.
Olivia. They suddenly said you needed surgery, and I was worried. How are you feeling?
The baby didn't make it, and I'll be in the hospital for a while. As soon as I voiced it, tears overflowed, and I sobbed uncontrollably. Michael kept repeating insincere words like, "It's tough, isn't it?" or "I'm feeling sad too," until I stopped crying.
You must feel alone. I'll come to your hospital room right away.
After a while, when I finally calmed down, Michael's voice softened. Visiting hours are over now. Come tomorrow at 10 a.m. He genuinely listened to my request. The next day, I left the hospital at the time Michael was supposed to visit. I returned home and noticed his car wasn't in the driveway. Sneaking inside through the front door, I found Michael was absent as well. This was my chance. I reached for the doorknob of his room. It wasn't locked, and the door swung open. Inside, I discovered things beyond my imagination, and even more shocking items revealed themselves one after another. With this much evidence, I felt confident. I immediately called Michael. Where are you?
At the hospital. I'm having them check the room where you're staying.
Sorry. I've already been discharged.
What?
His voice echoed like a roar, and he demanded to know where I was. When I told him I was back home, he abruptly hung up the phone. Within about 10 minutes, my husband rushed into the house, clearly flustered. When he saw me sitting on the sofa, he let out a relieved sigh and said,
It must have been tough.
I replied nonchalantly and placed something I had found in his room on the table. Michael's expression briefly shifted, but he quickly regained his usual demeanor. This is the herbal tea pregnant women shouldn't drink, right? I asked. Michael responded.
There's no way that's true.
I pressed further. Not just tea, but you also mixed it into my food, right? I placed a bowl of soup from the freezer on the table. Michael shook his head vigorously, denying any involvement. Even when I confronted him, he refused to confess, insisting that he only fed me nutritious food. You sell flowers from a mobile stand and grow herbs. Do you really think you can talk your way out of this? I challenged. Michael replied.
I know about flowers, but herbs are just trivia.
Frustrated, I pointed to the evidence. Then what's this? And forgetting to lock the door, that's careless. Determined not to let him slip away, I stood up and swung open the door to his room. There, in his room, were numerous illegal plants that he shouldn't have been cultivating. Even my husband, usually composed, broke into a cold sweat, his face turning pale. He couldn't come up with any excuses and fell silent. I can't believe you're growing so many dangerous plants. By the way, I've taken photos as evidence, just in case. Any attempts to deny it would be futile. His mouth moved, but he only mumbled vague responses. Frustrated, I entered his room and slammed down a suspicious ledger I found in the closet, a record of outrageous prices for selling herbs. Michael stammered.
That's a misunderstanding. Among the flowers I grow, there are some exceptionally valuable ones you can't find elsewhere.
I challenged him. Which flowers are those? Like this poppy-looking one? Be honest, and I'll cooperate. Michael hesitated, then finally confessed.
Really? Well, the truth is.
With a calm expression, I listened to my husband's story. After losing both parents in an accident, he initially lived a comfortable life thanks to life insurance. However, as the money dwindled, he turned to cultivating illegal herbs to finance his college education. That must have been tough. So after graduating, you started the mobile flower business? I remarked. Michael replied.
Yeah, that's right. Selling herbs through a flower shop seemed reasonable. Plus, if things got dicey, I could always move elsewhere.
His smirk made me shudder, but I managed to maintain composure. Did you give me those forbidden herbs because you were after the life insurance payout? I confronted him, thrusting the expensive insurance certificate I found in the closet toward him. Michael's face twitched in surprise.
This was for you in case something happened.
He stammered. Ordinary policies don't cost $350,000. Were you planning to send both me and our unborn child to the afterlife? His insistence wavered, so I showed him the photo data from the obstetrician. This wanted criminal and Michael look eerily alike. Granted, you're not wearing black-rimmed glasses now. Michael retorted.
It's just a resemblance.
I challenged him. Then let's go to the police station to verify. Sweating profusely, he scratched his head and reluctantly agreed. But the next moment, he lunged at me.
Wait! That's enough!
The doctor, who had been hiding in the kitchen, rushed toward my husband. In a swift motion, he hoisted Michael onto his shoulders and threw him to the ground with a resounding thud. Michael remained writhing in pain, unable to move.
You sent my grandchild to the other side 3 years ago.
The doctor declared, shocking Michael to his core. It turned out that 3 years prior, the doctor's granddaughter, Isabella, had fallen seriously ill during her pregnancy and tragically passed away along with the unborn child. And at that time, her husband was none other than Michael. Isabella's pregnancy had been progressing smoothly, and her health had been excellent. However, an autopsy revealed an alarming amount of drugs in her system, leading to Michael being pursued by the police as a wanted criminal. At the time when Isabella and her husband were married, the doctor was working overseas and had no prior acquaintance with Michael. But upon hearing the devastating news, the doctor promptly returned to the U.S. Despite exhaustive efforts, he couldn't locate Michael, who had seemingly vanished. Undeterred, the doctor established his practice in the U.S. and continued the search for the culprit. When my husband unexpectedly walked into the examination room with me, he was taken aback. Thinking on his feet, he swiftly moved me to the adjacent room.
Damn it! I thought it wouldn't be found.
Michael clenched his teeth, his gaze icy, sending shivers down my spine. When we first met, you lived in that remote place to avoid attention, didn't you?
Yeah, Olivia. You said you'd cooperate with me, right?
Absolutely. If it's to make you pay for your sins, I'll help. Clearly flustered by my unexpected response, Michael stammered.
Olivia, I genuinely love you. I didn't want our unborn child to take you away from me, so I made you drink those forbidden herbs. I'm truly sorry.
Are you trying to brush this off so lightly? I lost a precious life.
From now on, I'll focus solely on you, Olivia, and serve you. Please believe me.
I stared into his eyes, then shook my head vigorously, sending a stern message. Do you think I can stay silent after you sent my precious child to the afterlife? Don't play games.
If you want a child, we can have another.
No. I don't want your child. I won't show mercy to the man who betrayed Isabella and her unborn child. Live with the weight of your disregard for human life. At that moment, I saw a police vehicle approaching. Michael tried to escape, but the doctor quickly apprehended him, handing him over to the police. As they handcuffed him and led him away, I watched. Then, our home was searched. Just as I suspected, Michael had secretly cultivated illegal herbs in his room. Furthermore, he had grown dangerous plants and even mixed them into frozen food. Afterward, my husband was sentenced to prison for harming the doctor's grandchild and endangering me. Not only that, but it was also revealed that Michael had orchestrated an accident to send his parents to the other side, and as a result, he was barred from ever returning to our vicinity. The doctor, finally avenging his grandchild, shed tears after the trial. I divorced Michael and returned to a solitary life. Although I lost my unborn child, I began to think that it would have been even more painful for the unborn child to learn about the father's sins. I threw myself into work, and my efforts paid off with career advancement. Now, as a manager overseeing many subordinates, I continue to excel on the front lines of my workplace.
How did you find this story? If you enjoyed it, consider subscribing to our channel. Until next time, take care.